My name is Miranda. I'm 41 years old. I work as an office staff member at a logistics company. Right now, I live with my middle school-aged son and my husband, Cody, who is the same age as our son. Sigh. Cody let out a deep sigh while checking the position of his tie in the mirror. His face looked gloomy. Starting today, I'll be on a business trip again. I won't be back for a week. His business trips have increased over the past few years, happening at least once a month. He also frequently spends weekends away from home, and he seems exhausted. I'm feeling grateful for his efforts to support our family. Said this, "Oh, it's your mistress and your secret child's birthday, isn't it?" What? Cody froze mid-action, halting his grooming in front of the mirror to glance at me through its reflection. What did you just say? Oh, I said it's your mistress and your secret child's birthday. What are you talking about? Come on, it's time for you to go. You wouldn't want to miss your flight, right? Hurry up, but move it, move it. I shoved his suitcase toward him and guided him to the front door. Cody walked on instinct, but his face remained fixed on me the whole time. Take care. Have a safe trip. I waved with a smile, and Cody, with an awkward and forced grin, waved back before leaving uneasily. As soon as the front door closed, I locked it securely. I already knew that he was cheating. His affair partner was none other than Mary, the president's wife, at the company where Cody worked. Mary also worked at the same company and happened to be his direct superior. I first noticed something was off 6 months ago. It was when Cody was packing for one of his business trips, and something in his suitcase felt out of place. Amid work-related documents, there was a travel guidebook. Who brings something like this on a business trip? My instincts kicked in, and I hired a private investigator to look into his activities during his trips. As it turns out, my suspicions were correct. Your husband indeed went on the business trips as scheduled. However, he was seen holding hands with a woman in public, and they stayed in the same hotel room. What? The investigator laid out several photos on the table. I can't believe it. An affair with someone from his workplace. Holding a photo of Cody, with his hand on a woman's waist as they entered a hotel room. I trembled uncontrollably. And I'm sorry to bring this up, but the investigator hesitated. Is there more? Well, it appears that your husband and this woman have a child together. I was stunned. An affair was bad enough, but having a child together, they both seemed to be living double lives. Surprisingly, I managed to listen calmly to the rest of the investigator's report. I took the evidence of Cody's infidelity home and sat alone in silence. You've made a fool out of me. I noticed my nails had dug into my palms, leaving deep marks. I won't let this slide. I vowed to use this evidence for revenge someday. That day has come. I get dressed and headed to a certain destination. A week after Cody left for his business trip, I was relaxing and watching TV when my phone rang. The caller ID showed it was Cody. Hello, Miranda. Why haven't you been answering? I've been trying to reach you for a whole week. He was yelling, loud enough for anyone nearby to hear. Oh, sorry. Looks like the phone was off, and I just turned it back on. Who doesn't check their phone for a whole week? Are you doing this on purpose? I'm not doing it on purpose, I answered nonchalantly. Whatever. More importantly, where are you right now? Where? At my parents' house. Why? Well, since you said you'd be on a business trip for a week, I thought I'd spend the time at my parents' place. I haven't seen Mom in a while. Do you even know what kind of week I've had because of that? Not really. The day I left, I got to the airport, only to find out my flight was mysteriously canceled. When I tried contacting the company, No one answered. And when I came back home, you weren't there, and my keys didn't work. That sounds rough. Well, I changed the locks so you couldn't get in. What? Why would you do that? Because you have another place, don't you? At that, his confidence faltered, and he fell silent. What's the matter? You know that apartment you have near the office. Even as I mentioned specifics, he just swallowed hard. This is something we need to discuss in person. Should I wait in front of the house, then? No, come to the address I'm about to give you. You can go inside and wait. I gave him the address and ended the call. All right, let's do this. I told Mom I was heading out for a bit and walked out the door. What a house. Passing through a grand gate, I stood before an impressive, Western-style mansion. How could someone living in a place like this end up with Cody? This was Mary's home, his mistress, and the wife of his company's president. Excuse me. I was ushered into the living room, overwhelmed by its elegant interior design. We've been expecting you. A man's voice pulled me back to reality. In the living room, Cody, Mary, and the president were all already seated. Miranda. Cody looked at me, strangely haggard, his once crisp suit now rumpled. Quite a look. Did you sleep outside? Cody's face flushed red as he glared at me, while Mary shrank beside him. Now that everyone's here, shall we begin? Mary's husband, the president, gestured for us to sit on the sofa. Miranda, how do you know where the president lives? Are you two acquainted? We're not, but I was the one who told him about your affair. So he knows everything. Yes, I know. The president's voice was low and steady. The day Cody left for what was supposed to be a business trip and his illegitimate child's birthday celebration, I went to the company with proof in hand. Suddenly, I was told that an employee's wife wanted to see me. I had no idea what was happening. Then Miranda laid everything out. You two have been having an affair for 3 years. Honey, it's a misunderstanding. We're just a boss and subordinate. A boss and subordinate who share the same hotel room on a business trip. I pulled out the photos from my bag and showed them to the two of them. What is this? Some kind of secret recording. I had a private investigator take these photos. This was a mistake by the hotel. They told us there was only one room left, and all other hotels were fully booked, so we had no choice. Yeah, that's right. I slept on the couch while Mary took the bed. Nothing inappropriate happened. The two were attempting to rely on a cliched excuse straight out of a romance novel, blaming a hotel booking error. But we still had damning evidence to confront them with. Then, what about this? I placed another photo on the table. This is. The picture showed Cody holding a small child while Mary stood beside him, smiling. This child. It's yours, isn't it? And isn't that Mary's mom, Tamara, in the background? How did you even get this? Was Tamara in on this too? The president slumped in his chair, visibly shaken. Was that why Tamara claimed she was taking a year off for her health? Was it actually for the pregnancy? No, of course not. Tell the truth. The president slammed his hand on the table. If you'd like, I can verify the records right now. I'm sorry. It's true. The story about caring for my mom was a lie. Under the president's intense gaze, Mary broke down and confessed. Hey, I couldn't keep it hidden any longer. What about me? How does this leave me? I thought we could keep it under wraps. You couldn't hide it forever. Cody, desperate to save himself, was starting to look utterly pathetic. We already know you've been maintaining a second household. I have no idea what you're talking about. You were raising your child there. And when you weren't around, Mary's mom was taking care of them, helping her own daughter cover up an affair. There must have been a pretty big reason for that. This has nothing to do with you. When Mary and I got married, I paid off her family's debt. You did what? Oh, so that's why you didn't want this affair to come to light. You'd have to pay me back if it did. You wouldn't actually make us do that, would you? Mary pleaded with the president, but his face remained cold and unmoving. Seeing his reaction, Mary's expression turned to one of utter despair. At least I'm grateful to Miranda for telling me. Thanks to her, I was able to make sure you two paid for this. Paid for this? Wait, are you saying you were involved in that? Of course. I was the one who canceled your flights through the company, so that's why I couldn't get through to anyone at the office. I announced a week-long maintenance shutdown and gave everyone time off, so that's why no one answered any calls. During that time, we also changed the locks to the house. Apparently, Mary had returned home at some point, only to find herself locked out. Where did you go after that? You went to your little hideaway apartment, didn't you? Why ask if you already know? You're just being spiteful. You're the one with a twisted personality, deceiving your family, and having another one on the side. Mary held back her urge to yell. And that apartment. The lock didn't work, did it? Yay, it didn't. That's probably you guys, isn't it? Cody finally referred to the president as you guys. It seemed he had given up on denying it. The apartment you lived in was under my name. I had all the locks changed. So where did you go after that? After that, we decided to stay at a hotel. But when we went to pay, Mary's card didn't work. Exactly. My card. Suddenly, my card stopped working. Yay, because the president shot Mary a cold stare. I froze it. Why, that left me in a mess. To mess with you, of course. I've let you use the family card however you pleased until now. You could have at least told me. I even tried calling, but you wouldn't pick up. Mary stood up and began listing her grievances. Do you know how hard it's been for the past week, with no contact from you? I had a small child to care for. Why should I have to think about a child that isn't even mine? The child didn't do anything wrong. True, the child isn't at fault. That's why the parents need to face consequences. As I smirked, both of them looked at me with fear in their eyes. If your credit card didn't work at the hotel, what about cash? I only ever carry cards, and Cody doesn't even have one. We didn't have enough cash, so you had no choice but to wander aimlessly. That explains why Cody looks so ragged. But it's strange. Mary, you look fresh, like you've had a shower. This is all your fault. Did you enjoy locking us out on purpose? Judging by how you're snapping at me now, it seems like you had a hard time. That alone makes it worth it for me. Where were you this past week, Mary? I thought my child might die at this rate, so I went to my mom's house. Mom wouldn't let Cody inside, so it was just me and the kid. He had to stay at a nearby park. Oh, so that's why you're covered in bug bites. They look itchy. His arms and legs, exposed by a short-sleeved shirt and shorts, were covered in bite marks. Just looking at him made me itch. Cody glared at me, scratching himself repeatedly. Even if you had a change of clothes for what was supposed to be a one-week trip, where did you change? In the park. That's public indecency. I used a public restroom to change. There was water from the fountain, thank goodness, but sleeping on a bench was agony. Someone might have reported you as a homeless person. Homeless? Well, aren't you? You didn't have a home to go back to. For Cody, who had worked as an office worker for over 20 years, there could be no greater humiliation. You couldn't even afford to go to a spa, could you? You've been quiet since you got here, but you reek. I took a step back and pinched my nose dramatically. Humiliated to the core, his face turned visibly red, even under his grimy skin. Water might have been available in the park, But what about food? Did you scavenge from the trash? Of course not. Mary brought food to the park every time. A man in his 40s, accepting charity from his affair partner. Cut it out. It's like feeding a stray dog. Right. Cody finally snapped and reached out to grab my shirt collar. Just as he was about 2 inches away, the president grabbed Cody's collar and stopped him. Don't start a fight in my house. I'll call the police. Yes. Cody, now looking like a small dog intimidated by a large one, nervously sat back on the sofa. This is the most humiliating moment of my life. Cody gritted his teeth, glaring at me with resentment. Did you really have to go this far? Are you even human? Mary stared at me too, as if I were some heartless monster. I hit my breaking point. That's my line, I shouted, and Cody and Mary looked as if their eyes might fall out of their sockets. Fueled by my emotions, I took a step closer to them. With every step I took, they retreated until they were backed up against the wall. You think this is the most humiliating moment of your life? You think I'm not human? I'm giving it all right back to you. Anger erupted from deep within me, my voice echoing with fury. I was astonished at the strength I found in myself. Cheating wasn't enough for you. You had to have a child and live a double life. Don't think for a second you can keep treating me like a fool. I'm not just hurt, I'm furious, and I'm done playing nice. And you, Mary, what are you going to do to me? I'm not the one you should be worried about, it's your husband. I glanced at the president, and he nodded in agreement. Mary. Yes. Mary's face went pale, her lips dry. I'm divorcing you. Get out of this house. No. I'm also going to sue for alimony and repay the debts I covered for you. Wait, there's no way my family can afford that kind of money. Then I'll take it to court. I'll also be filing my own claim for compensation for Mary. Mary's legs gave out, and she collapsed on the floor. The president stood over her, cold and indifferent, showing no sign of concern. For about 3 minutes, silence filled the room. Fine. And just as I thought to say something, Mary muttered softly, Do you agree? Yes. Mary nodded without looking up. Slowly, she stood and grabbed Cody's arm, leaning against him. I'm leaving you and remarrying Cody. What? Cody looked at Mary, completely bewildered. Why, aren't you happy? I mean, yes, of course, I am. Then it's settled. Now we can raise our child together. Honestly, we should have done this from the start. Mary, now radiant with excitement, contrasted starkly with Cody's baffled expression. I'm leaving you to build a happy life with Cody. Don't come crying to me later. That's not going to happen. Just pay me what you owe, and we're done. You're so efficient. I appreciate that. Cody, take care of Mary. You two deserve each other. Yes. Cody looked back and forth between Mary and the president, clearly distressed. You'll cover my compensation and debts too, right? At that moment, I didn't miss the twitch on Cody's face. What about my job? Your job. Of course, I'll still be able to work, right? The president dismissed Cody's audacious question outright. What nonsense are you talking about? You're fired. Fired. Of course, Mary is fired too. Good luck job hunting, you two. Please. No, President, I'm begging you. Anything but termination. Cody clung to the president's feet, apologizing profusely and repeatedly. Cody, do you really want to grovel like this to stay at this company? Is it even worth it? Not worth it. I frowned, puzzled by the comment. Then Mary, smug as ever, tilted her chin up and sneered at me. You'd be in trouble if you divorced Cody, wouldn't you? And why is that? Because Cody's family owns a lot of land, right? No way you'd let her catch like that slip through your fingers. Ha! So that's what this is about. I glanced at Cody, who looked at me pleadingly as if to say, don't tell her, but I decided to ignore him. It wouldn't bother me at all to divorce a man like this. Don't try to act tough. Why don't you just admit you're desperate? No, I genuinely don't need a man like him. What? Sour grapes? Mary, eager to see me distressed, kept goading me. It's not sour grapes. Actually, the family with land is mine. What? Time seemed to freeze, and Mary stopped moving entirely. Her blinking was the only sign she hadn't turned to stone. It seems he's been lying to you. The truth is, this man is nothing more than a gambling addict with debts. Having his secret exposed, Cody clutched his head and sank to the floor. Your family owns the land. Gambling, debts, unable to process it all. Mary could only repeat my words back to me. Cody had racked up gambling debts even before we got married. I didn't know, and ended up marrying him, much to my relatives' disapproval. Right, Cody. Sweat poured from him, soaking into the carpet. I put him on an allowance and took away his credit cards to make him pay off his debts. That's why he didn't have a card. Isn't it odd for a grown man to have no credit card? Didn't you find that suspicious? Embarrassed by the fact that his salary had been managed by his wife, Cody shrank away from Mary. I restricted him to just enough cash to get by, and we've only managed to pay off half the debt. My paycheck and help from my family covered our child's tuition and kept us afloat. You tricked me. You completely tricked me. I didn't mean to, but Mary, being the president's wife, made me feel so inferior. Cody now turned to Mary, clinging to her as he offered yet another desperate apology. But at this point, his apologies were utterly meaningless. All those times you made me pay for our dates. Was that what it was all about? Mary felt the strength drain from her body as she exhaled slowly. So, this guy has no money at all. Tough luck for you. Mary's face turned pale as she realized she'd made the wrong choice. She turned to the president hesitantly and made an embarrassingly desperate plea. Listen, I want to start over with you. What? I know it's a shameless request. I hurt you without a second thought, and I know it's unforgivable. But please, just reconsider the divorce. I don't need the credit cards or money anymore. I just want us back together. It might look like she was remorseful, but even a child could see through it. Mary betrayed Cody the moment she realized he was broke. She knew staying married to the president was the only way to avoid financial struggles. The idea of being saddled with a debt-ridden man, raising a child, and paying alimony in a divorce court was enough to send chills down her spine. I swear I'll never betray you again. I'll apologize with all my heart. Just forgive me. I'll quit my job and never see Cody again. What about the kid? I'll raise them in this house. You won't have to see them. I'm the dad. You think you can just decide that this child would be better off without a broke father in their life? They ignored everyone else and started arguing loudly. The president, looking exasperated, sipped from his glass of water. Finally, he stepped in. Sorry to interrupt your heated discussion, but I'm divorcing Mary. Wait, please. Waiting won't change a thing. My decision stands. You two can co-parent and figure it out together. I'm out of this. Please, just listen to me one more time. Mary burst into tears, her sobs echoing throughout the house like a child throwing a tantrum. The president, however, ignored her completely and walked over to retrieve an envelope from the shelf. Inside are the divorce papers, alimony agreements, and debt-related documents. review them, sign, and give them to the lawyer. No, I won't sign anything. Then we'll settle it in court. You'll lose, but that's your choice. The president placed the envelope in front of Mary. This one is for Cody. He then set another envelope down in front of Cody. It likely contained papers related to alimony and a notice of termination. Cody, with trembling hands, opened the envelope and looked inside, his face falling in shock. Alimony of $30K. It's a fair amount. Any complaints? No, none. I have plenty of complaints. Take them up with a lawyer. I won't be talking to you again. With that firm declaration, Mary fell silent. Now it was my turn. I pulled 2 envelopes from my bag, similar to the president's, and placed one in front of Mary. This details the alimony. Sign it and hand it to the lawyer. Their business card is inside. Mary didn't even touch the envelope. I then handed the second envelope to Cody. Take it. When I prompted him, he slowly reached out and pulled the envelope toward himself. The compensation money and child support payments until our child graduates from high school are included in these papers. Sign them, and I'll hand them to the attorney. I haven't said I want a divorce yet. Even if you refuse, it's happening. Or would you prefer we take this to court? Fight over custody and the divorce. Though I doubt someone with your track record cheating, a secret child, and a pile of debt could win. Please, I'm begging you. Cody pleaded with me for what felt like the 100th time today, offering a desperate apology. You should have thought about that before. Was it the lure of the president's wife's money? It must have been hard for you, living on a budget with no freedom. I'm truly sorry. I won't even ask for spending money anymore. I'm about to lose my job, and then I won't be able to pay off my debts or the compensation to the president. Please, just don't divorce me. So you're saying you want me to take over paying off your debts and covering the compensation for your affair? Cody said nothing, but the silence spoke volumes. I couldn't hold back my laughter. Miranda, don't make me laugh. I know it's ridiculous, but I have no one else to turn to. Your situation doesn't concern me. You better figure it out. Work day and night to earn money. Isn't this great? You said you were feeling out of shape recently. Now you won't need to waste money on a gym membership. It's a workout, good for your health, and helps you save money. What more could you ask for? As I clapped my hands with mock cheer, Cody's face went pale, his features aging instantly. This was the moment our futures diverged dramatically. I would never cross paths with him again. Miranda, don't abandon me. Cody clung to my legs, desperately trying to keep me from leaving. Get off me. I struggled to shake him off, but the strength of a desperate man was unnerving, making it nearly impossible to free myself. Just say you won't divorce me. Absolutely not. I thought I might have to step on his arm to escape when the president intervened. Have some dignity. At least try to be a decent husband at the end. The president restrained Cody's upper body, stopping his frantic movements. Taking advantage of the moment, I quickly distanced myself. Thank you, President. Cody let go of my hand and looked at me with a pained expression. I spoke with finality in my voice. I have no intention of getting back together with you. Please stay away from me and my son from now on. From here on, communicate through my lawyer. Miranda, don't go. Please don't go. Goodbye. Miranda. I left the house, leaving Cody behind. That was the last time I saw him. I had been worried about how things would unfold, but eventually, our divorce was finalized without issues. The settlement money was transferred in full by both of them. Since they likely didn't have the funds to pay all at once, they must have borrowed the money for it. I heard that Mary was evicted from their home and returned to her parents' house with her children. They are now struggling to manage the compensation payment along with the repayment of debts they had borrowed years ago, which even led them to consider selling their family home. In an effort to ensure child support for their kids, Mary has been demanding financial help from Cody. However, Cody himself hasn't been able to secure a stable job since he was fired from his company. He has been running from one interview to another every single day, but unfortunately, none have led to permanent employment until he lands a full-time job. He has been forced to take on part-time work, day and night, to make ends meet. Most of these are short-term gigs, mainly because they offer same-day payments and allow him the flexibility to attend job interviews. For now, the child support payments are being sent each month, but Cody is burdened with overwhelming debts from gambling and the expenses for the child he had with Mary. It seems like he'll have no choice but to keep working indefinitely. As for me, I sold the house we lived in and bought a new apartment. The unpacking is almost done, and now I'm quietly settling into a new life with my son in a fresh place.
One day, as I stepped outside to hang the laundry, I noticed that the sky had taken on a distinctly autumnal appearance. Thinking to myself that it might be another hot day, I glanced over towards the guest house. On the same property as my house, there's a guest house where my son Kevin, his wife Helen, and their son Eric live. Whenever Helen comes over to our house, she takes household items like toilet paper, detergent, and shampoo, and she also seems to be secretly taking money from my wallet. However, since I haven't caught her in the act, I have no proof and can't confront her about it. Our living expenses kept dwindling, so I decided to take on a part-time job. Of course, I tried talking to Kevin about what Helen was doing, but he wouldn't listen to me. So, we decided to have a discussion with my husband Paul, who comes home once a month from his job in another city, along with Kevin and Eric. Helen was supposed to join us later. I told you that money has been disappearing from my wallet, and that's not the only thing. Are you saying Helen did it? You must be joking. Paul then quietly placed his smartphone on the table, showing a video. It was footage from the security camera we had installed in our house. The video showed Helen in a bright corner of our living room, finding my wallet in my bag, taking out several bills, and then putting the wallet back into the bag. Kevin was stunned. But I've been giving her enough money for our expenses. Why? Even after all this, you still don't get it? My words hit Kevin hard. He stormed out of the house, ran to the guest house, and dragged Helen back. Helen turned pale as she watched the video. My name is Rebecca, a 60-year-old housewife. My husband Paul works in another city and comes home about once a month. We're both past the midpoint of our lives and would like to live peacefully, but it seems that's not possible. When Paul found out he had to work away from home, he confided in me with a slightly disappointed look. Rebecca, I've been assigned to a new post, so I'll be living alone from next month. They've asked me to oversee the new branch and take care of the staff there. Paul has always been a caring big brother figure at his company, and everyone looked up to him. He's not just supportive at work, but also at home. When Kevin was a newborn, Paul took the initiative to help with feeding and changing diapers. Even though he couldn't take parental leave, he spent weekends and summer holidays napping with Kevin, taking him to the park, and teaching him as he grew older. Seeing Paul unusually downcast was rare. Don't be so upset. You'll be back soon, right? I assumed he would be back in 2 to 3 months. Well, I'm not sure how long it'll be. I'll be working in another state, so I won't be able to see you often. I'll only be able to come home about once a month, and I'm worried about you. Why is he worried about me? I thought for a moment and then realized I had a chronic illness and had just undergone surgery recently, so he was worried that something might happen to me. Don't worry. Kevin and his family are in the guest house, and I'll contact you if anything happens. On the same property as my house, there's an annex where Kevin, his wife Helen, and their son Eric live. Kevin got married 6 years ago and lived in an apartment for a couple of years, but due to the landlord's circumstances, they had to move out. They searched for other places, but Helen refused to accept any of them, eventually coming to ask if they could live with us. Paul was not keen on the idea and initially opposed it. Kevin, you know Rebecca has a chronic illness. I don't want to burden her too much, so I'm against it. We turned him down once, but when less than a month remained before they had to leave, Kevin came back looking quite desperate. Dad, please, we won't cause any trouble. Just let us live in the guest house. By the time this request came, Paul had changed his mind and agreed to let Kevin's family stay in the guest house. When I asked him why later, he said it was because he felt more secure knowing I wouldn't be alone. It's been about 3 years since then, and they show no sign of moving out, still living in the guest house. Not wanting to worry Paul, I tried to sound cheerful. Don't worry. I'm recovering well after the surgery, and I'm taking my medication properly. We should install a monitoring camera. The newer models are quite advanced, with temperature sensors to help prevent heat stroke and other features. You're worrying too much. I laughed, and we talked into the night. Later, Paul actually installed a monitoring camera and linked it to an app on his smartphone. I was surprised, but since it was placed high up, it didn't bother me, and I quickly got used to it. A week later, Paul left with a heavy heart, and now I live alone in a house that feels too spacious. However, I had something on my mind that I hadn't told Paul. It was about Kevin's wife, Helen. Even though she was supposed to be a housewife, she often left Eric at home and went out somewhere. I could understand going out for lunch with friends occasionally, but this happened quite frequently. Also, whenever she came over with Eric, she always took something from our house, which troubled me. Rebecca, I'm taking some toilet paper. At first, it was just small things like that, so I didn't mind much. But it gradually escalated to items like detergent, shampoo, body soap, and even, on one occasion, plates. Though she returned the plates, it was still strange. Helen, are you struggling so much financially that you can't afford to buy these things? Huh? No, that's not it. Then why are you taking things from the house? I'm just trying to save money. With Eric around, we'll need a lot of money in the future, so I'm trying to save up now. So Rebecca, please think of it as helping out and overlook it. She said this nonchalantly, waving her hand as she left again. She always dressed fashionably, talked about going to the spa, and had her nails done. Was she really saving money? Kevin worked from early morning until late at night, and I hadn't heard of any financial difficulties. I wanted to confront her about her intentions, but I didn't want to be the meddling mother-in-law, so I stayed silent. During these days, my wallet started to mysteriously run out of money. I suspected Helen, but I had no proof. Since the money was taken without me noticing, I couldn't catch her in the act, and time just kept passing by. One day, I went outside to hang the laundry and saw that the sky had taken on the appearance of autumn. I thought it would be another hot day despite the lingering summer heat and glanced towards the guest house. Even after this, I never once saw Helen taking money. I wondered if it wasn't her after all, but I started hearing unfavorable rumors about Helen from various neighbors. They said they saw her dressed like she was going to a club or walking around with young men. I was skeptical. I knew she liked to dress fashionably, but I had only seen her in outfits you'd see in fashion magazines, and she didn't seem like the type to cheat. When she was at the guest house, she sometimes wore pajamas, so I couldn't imagine her partying around. However, the fact that people had seen her suggested that there might be a side of Helen I didn't know. Even as I kept an eye on things, my wallet continued to lose money. Running out of living expenses, I decided to get a part-time job until I could find proof. I told Paul it was for a change of pace, but he was very worried. I managed to get his approval on the condition that I wouldn't overdo it. Fortunately, I saw that the nearby supermarket was hiring part-time cashiers, so I contacted them and went for an interview. I had also consulted with Kevin just in case, and on the day before my first shift, I told him, "Kevin, I'm going to start working part-time next week." "Why?" "You just got out of the hospital and must still be exhausted." "It's only 3 days a week, so I'll be fine." Besides, about Helen. I decided to talk to Kevin about Helen's behavior, hoping he might say something to her and we could make some progress. "What about Helen?" "Actually, she's been taking things like toilet paper and shampoo from our house recently." "Is your household struggling financially?" Kevin was indignant. "No way. I provide money every month, and Helen handles the finances. She used to work in accounting, so she's good at managing our finances." "Is that so?" "But it's true she's been taking things. Also, money from my wallet." "Money? Are you saying Helen's been taking that too?" Kevin looked skeptical. "Yes. Money has been disappearing little by little from my wallet. She probably thinks I haven't noticed, but if this continues, it's going to be a problem. Could you talk to her about it?" "Mom, are you losing it?" "There's no way that's happening." Kevin sighed deeply and didn't believe me, no matter what I said. The next day, I told Helen that I was going to start working part-time and that I wouldn't be able to watch Eric as often. This happened just as Helen came over to leave Eric with me. Helen frowned and complained. "What? Then who's going to look after Eric?" "Helen, let me be clear. You need to take care of your own child. Why do you always leave Eric with me and go off somewhere?" "Where do you go?" I spoke firmly, and Helen glared at me, annoyed. "Fine, I understand. I won't ask you anymore." Without answering my question, she took Eric's hand and went back into the guest house. I felt a cold sweat down my back from the tension, but from that day on, only Eric would come over. "Granny, play with me," I thought to myself. Helen's out again. And invited Eric inside, taking care of him. I hoped that starting my part-time job would make Helen reconsider her actions. With that faint hope, I spent the week. The first day of my part-time job arrived, and my shift started from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Having been a housewife for so long, I was nervous about working again. Although being a cashier seemed simple, there was a lot to learn and do. I clutched my notepad and pen and received training from a young employee. She was in her 20s, much more capable than I was, and she quickly explained how to handle point cards and operate the self-checkout. Her name tag had a gold badge that said, "Customer Service Expert," and her demonstration of how to handle the register was excellent. I need to make sure I remember this, I reminded myself as I headed home and approached the gate. As I searched my bag for the house key, I saw Eric standing in front of the house. I was puzzled and quietly approached him. Not realizing my previous thoughts had vanished, I called out to him. "Eric? What are you doing here?" Hearing his name, Eric looked up, his eyes brimming with tears and his nose running as he stood there crying. I was startled and quickly took a tissue from my bag to wipe his tears and nose. "What's wrong? Did something sad happen?" He told me that he had been waiting here for me to come out all day. When I didn't come out, he asked his mother Helen, who told him that Granny had gone to work and wasn't home, which shocked him and made him cry. Why did Granny have to leave? Is it because of my work that I can't play with Granny anymore? Eric said, sniffling and trying his best to explain. Work? What work do you have? I asked. Eric replied, this, and handed me a piece of paper. I unfolded the paper, which was folded into quarters, and saw Helen's handwriting. Eric's job. Transfer money from Granny's wallet to Mom's wallet once a day. I was stunned by this instruction. What? I looked back and forth between the note and Eric's face, and in a trembling voice, I asked Eric, Eric, did Mom tell you to do this? Then, Eric answered, yeah. Mom said it's my job and gave me this paper. My face tensed up, but I invited Eric inside and gave him some juice. He drank it happily, but I was in shock. I couldn't believe that Helen had instructed such a small child to steal money. Could this really be happening? I wasn't sure. How could this have happened without me noticing? I've always been with Eric, and at 5 years old, he shouldn't have had many opportunities to take money from my wallet. We were together from morning till night, so how did he manage to steal money? Suddenly, an idea came to my mind. That night, I called Paul and explained the situation. Okay, I understand. I'm not doubting Eric, but I'll review the footage from the monitoring camera. Paul listened carefully and said he'd check. 3 days later, Paul contacted me. Rebecca? I found something alarming. What? My heart skipped a beat. It turned out that Eric was indeed the culprit, but even more shocking was that the footage showed Helen instructing Eric on how to take money from my wallet. She wasn't aware of the monitoring camera, but even so, to steal money in broad daylight was unthinkable. I was planning to come back this weekend. This is wrong. We need to talk to Kevin and Helen. Yes, we do. I felt a heavy weight in my chest, but now that we knew the truth, we had to confront them and resolve this issue. The few days leading up to the weekend were filled with a dark cloud, but working part-time helped me focus on my tasks and temporarily forget the situation. The weekend arrived with a forecast predicting a direct hit from a hurricane, but fortunately, it veered west, leaving our area clear and sunny. However, despite the bright weather, a dark cloud hung over our household. Paul, intending to address the recent issue, left work 2 hours earlier than usual and drove home. He appeared slightly fatigued but also radiated a palpable anger, signaling that today might turn contentious. Upon arriving, Paul immediately walked over to the guest house and instructed Kevin and Helen to come to the main house urgently. However, only Kevin and Eric showed up. In the living room, Paul and I sat on one side of the table, facing Kevin and Eric on the other. Paul began. Kevin, where is Helen? I told her to come as well. She said she'd come later. Kevin's response was hesitant, likely due to the tense atmosphere. The clinking of ice in a glass on the table seemed to mock the silence. Well, I wanted to talk to her, specifically, but fine. Kevin, I've heard that Helen has been taking things from this house. Kevin looked shocked. Mom mentioned something like that before, but it's not like it happens often. Besides, Helen said she got those things from you, Mom. She says I gave them to her, but I didn't do so willingly. She insisted on taking things, saying she needed to save for Eric's future. Helen wouldn't do something like that. And about the money missing from my wallet, too. You can't be serious. Are you saying Helen has been stealing money? That's absurd. Paul then quietly placed his smartphone on the table and displayed the screen. This isn't a joke. We have footage showing Helen instructing Eric to take money and Eric actually doing it, all recorded on the monitoring camera I set up to watch over Rebecca due to her illness. Kevin was stunned as he watched the footage. In the video, Helen could be seen rummaging through a bag in a bright corner of the living room, finding a wallet, taking out several bills, and then putting the wallet back in the bag. She showed the money to Eric, crouched down to talk to him, and explained that he should take this much money from Granny's wallet. Eric nodded vigorously, saying he understood, and Helen hugged him tightly. Kevin stared at the screen, speechless. Paul continued. These recordings are from the camera I installed to monitor Rebecca. I never imagined it would capture something like this. We also have footage of Eric taking money from the wallet. Paul operates his smartphone and shows a different video. Eric didn't know when the money had been taken, but after watching this video, he finally understood. When I stood up to take my medication for my chronic condition, Eric had rummaged through my bag and quickly taken money from my wallet. Since the time for taking medicine was fixed, even young Eric could easily figure out the timing. How could this be? I trusted her. It's despicable to involve an innocent child in wrongdoing. You should be ashamed. Paul, who usually doesn't get angry, said this with a voice full of rage at that moment. Kevin flinched, and Eric was also flustered by this stern attitude. But I should have given you enough money for living expenses, so why? Why did you do this, Eric? Eric answered. Mom says her job is to give money to men, and she doesn't have enough. To men? Yes. Mom always puts on pretty makeup and goes out somewhere, but I'm not allowed to go with her. So I stay at home with Granny. Kevin looked at Eric suspiciously. His face showed confusion, as if saying, I don't understand what's going on. Could she be having an affair? Do you still not understand? I said, prompting Kevin to rush out of the house in a fury. He stormed to the guest house and dragged Helen back with him, causing a commotion. Ouch! Let go of me! Helen screamed as Eric watched, on the verge of tears, unsure of what was happening. Helen, what is going on? Explain yourself. Why did you steal money from Mom's wallet and even make Eric do it when I've given you enough for living expenses? Kevin demanded. Helen, startled, looked at Kevin, bewildered that he knew. What are you talking about? Do you have any proof that I did such a thing? Thinking there was no evidence, Helen spoke confidently. Kevin, however, pointed to Paul's smartphone on the table. This is the proof. You had Eric do it too. Where were you going when you left Eric with Rebecca? Were you cheating with another man? Helen's face turned pale as she saw the screen. Realizing she was caught, she fell to her knees and confessed, admitting she had been frequenting a male strip club, not having an affair. I'm sorry. At first, it was just for fun. Being stuck with Eric all day and the stress of having Rebecca living so close, I wanted to go out just once. But once turned into twice, then 3 times, and she got increasingly hooked. I just wanted to have some fun too. For that, I needed money. I wanted to spend money on those men. I couldn't work because I had to take care of Eric, and the allowance you gave me wasn't enough. That doesn't justify stealing from Mom's wallet. That's theft. I'm sorry. I won't go anymore. I'll never go to that club again. I'll return all the money I took. Please forgive me. Helen pleaded with Kevin through tears, but Kevin, filled with rage, was unmoved. No. Absolutely not. We're getting a divorce. No! She continued to cry and cling to him, but Kevin stood firm and later filed for divorce. I kept a record of the money that was taken, and I handed Helen a bill. What? This much? She seemed surprised, but couldn't deny it. She tried to negotiate for a lower amount, but I refused to budge and demanded the full amount. Helen, you should be grateful I'm not filing a police report. Repeated theft, even by a family member, would lead to your immediate arrest. Upon hearing this, Helen fell silent, bit her lip, and left. Kevin, in the process of divorcing her, also filed a claim for damages. A colleague at his workplace who had recently divorced recommended a good lawyer. Thus, Helen had to repay not only me but also pay damages to Kevin. Astonishingly, even in such circumstances, she couldn't stop going to male strip clubs, and there were rumors she had accumulated $20,000 to $30,000 in debt. I couldn't understand what drove her to such extremes, but it seemed only a matter of time before she couldn't manage her finances due to excessive payments. As for me, since I no longer needed to work part-time, I quit the supermarket and spent my days relaxing at home. No one lived in the guest house anymore, but instead, Kevin and Eric moved to the second floor of the main house. Kevin gained custody of Eric and took him in. While Kevin was at work during the day, I continued to look after Eric, but I no longer worried about money being stolen. Eric would be old enough to start preschool next year. I wonder if Kevin has already completed the paperwork. I should ask him. I murmured to myself while making pancakes for lunch. Just then, Paul came home. Today was the day he returned from his solo assignment. I hadn't seen Paul in weeks since that day, but he entered the living room looking unusually cheerful and happy. I'm home. Welcome back. Lunch is ready. Welcome back, Grandpa. From now on, the four of us, Paul, Kevin, Eric, and I, would live together. I truly felt blessed with such a peaceful life. Although the summer heat still lingers, the season is about to change to autumn, and Paul, still putting all his effort into playing with the child, suggests, "How about we go apple picking during the next holiday?" Smiling at his enthusiasm and thinking he should consider his age, I went back to making another batch of pancakes for him. My son Roderick and my husband David. I watched them hurriedly leave the house. Since it's Sunday, I thought I'd take it easy until Roderick came back. As I was hanging up the laundry, I heard the phone ring. Hello, is this the home of Roderick? A woman's voice came from the other side of the line. Is this Roderick's family? Yes. I couldn't grasp the situation, but my heart started to race. This is Ainsworth from Johns Hopkins Hospital. Roderick has been in an accident and has been brought here for emergency treatment. I felt my vision blur. The Roderick who just left the house so cheerfully. We are about to perform emergency surgery. Hello? Are you okay? The woman, who introduced herself as Ainsworth, asked, sensing my silence. Yes, the hospital, right? Johns Hopkins Hospital. Please come immediately. Yes. I replied quickly and hung up the phone. I have to get to the hospital quickly. As I got ready, I tried to contact David, but he didn't answer even after several calls. I called David's office. I explained the situation and asked them to connect me to David. However, they said David had not come to the office today. For now, I decided to head to the hospital. I kept telling myself that everything would be all right, and as I was about to leave the house, someone burst in. I was so surprised that I couldn't recognize who it was at first. Mom! I forgot my sandwich! Seeing my surprise, Roderick looked at me with concern. Mom? Did I surprise you by coming back suddenly? A swirl of emotions flooded through me. Mom! Tears began to fall from my eyes. Mom? What's wrong? My name is Jeannie. I'm a 45-year-old housewife with a husband and a son. I graduated from the local high school and attended culinary school, but I didn't pursue a career in hotels or restaurants. Instead, I worked part-time at a fast food shop. My classmates went on to open their own restaurants or became famous chefs after years of hard work. But I didn't acquire any notable skills. However, I have no regrets. I now have a precious family. It may be a common story, but I'm happy. While working part-time at the fast food shop, I met my husband David. The shop I worked at also did deliveries, and I was in charge of them. David worked at one of the companies I delivered to. Since David ordered fast food almost every day, I assumed he was single, but I never imagined he would ask me out. Seeing my confusion when he asked for my contact information, David handed me a piece of paper with his number on it. Even then, I didn't know what to do and didn't contact him. I thought things might become awkward, but David's attitude didn't change, so I gradually started to be aware of him. One day, when I went to deliver as usual, I didn't see David, and I realized I felt lonely. After a week of not seeing David, I decided to text the number he had given me. I haven't seen you lately. Are you all right? Even though it was just one sentence, I remember being extremely nervous. Will I ever get a reply? Maybe he doesn't even think about me anymore. While I was thinking that, a reply came late at night. It was nothing special. He had just been on a business trip. I'll be back at the office next week, so please get me some delicious fast food then. Even though I wasn't the one making it, I felt happy. I couldn't wait for the short 2-day weekend to end and for Monday to come. And then, Monday. I took extra care in getting ready that day. I took an order, prepared the fast food to deliver to David's company, and headed there with a pounding heart. The moment I saw David, whom I hadn't seen in a while, my heart raced. My hands were trembling as I handed the fast food to David. After taking the payment, David quietly said, "Thank you for the text. Can I text you again?" I nodded vigorously. "See you then." David smiled and walked away. Watching his retreating figure, I realized I had fallen in love with him. From then on, David and I started keeping in touch, eventually dating, and then getting married. After our wedding, I continued working part-time for a while but quit when I became pregnant. Thus, I became a housewife, and my days were filled with household chores for my husband and our son, Roderick. It wasn't easy, but I found it fulfilling. Roderick grew up healthy, and we became a picture-perfect happy family. It was around the time Roderick started middle school. David, who had been earning enough to support me and Roderick, got news of another promotion. Assistant director, they say. David mentioned with a sigh during our usual evening drink. "That's amazing!" While I was delighted, David seemed troubled. "Aren't you happy?" Since I had never worked in an office, I thought promotions were something to be happy about, but maybe it wasn't so simple. "Well, yeah, I'm happy," David murmured, looking somewhat lonely. "I'm sorry, I got excited all by myself. There must be something I don't understand." I thought it wasn't something to delve into deeply. Then David slowly began to talk. "I'll be even busier. More business trips too." His voice was almost like a child's, seeking comfort. "I'll miss you." Was he worried about me? Before we got married, David's job was quite demanding, with frequent business trips, overtime, and working on weekends. And I often expressed my loneliness. It wasn't just because I was young. I had made David worry a lot. Despite that, David's sincere responses eventually made me feel secure, and I became okay with not seeing him for days. David still remembered those times and sometimes checked my expression. "Oh, I'm fine now. I have Roderick too." I tried to sound as cheerful as possible. "No matter how busy you are, I'll be here waiting for you, and I'll keep this home a place where you can always feel at ease." "I see." Finally looking at me, David smiled. Sensing my determination, David said nothing more. Later, David's promotion was confirmed, and we celebrated at home. Roderick was happy too, and seeing David's relieved face, I felt at ease and made a new resolve. I will make our family bond even stronger. I thought so. Ever since David got promoted to assistant director, he had been working weekends and taking short business trips. But life hadn't changed much. However, soon he started going on long business trips far away. Every time he came home, David was exhausted and often went straight to bed without eating. If he was like this at home, how was he managing on his trips? Was he eating properly? Was he getting enough sleep? While David was away, I couldn't stop worrying. But David texted and called every day, so I didn't let my anxiety show. Besides, on his days off, he would go fishing with Roderick or make time for family. And I felt that David was trying to prioritize his family. I have to accept and support David no matter what. That's what I thought. By the time I got used to David's long trips, Roderick had started high school. This would probably reduce my burden a little. To avoid worrying David and to enjoy my own time, I thought about starting a new hobby. Just as I was thinking that, the phone in the house rang. It was 8 p.m. Roderick was still out at his club activities. Could it be David calling from his trip? Why was he calling the house instead of my cell phone? "Hello." I answered the phone cheerfully. But there was no response from the other end. "Hello?" I called out again, puzzled. Still, there was no sound from the other end. Prank calls even now. I sighed and hung up the receiver. Then, I heard a clattering sound from the yard. When I looked out into the yard, I saw an empty can rolling around. Our yard is fenced, so unless someone threw it, there shouldn't be an empty can rolling in. Not even on windy days did this happen. That was the end of it for that day, but silent calls and trash thrown into the yard continued occasionally. Not only that, strange letters started appearing in the mailbox. The letters were filled with the word curse, which was creepy. Wondering what to do, I first consulted with the neighbors, who told me that sometimes local elementary school kids play pranks. They said not to worry too much about it, and I agreed. Thinking that kids always play pranks, I tried not to mind the ongoing mischief. Would elementary school kids really make prank calls at 8 p.m.? With that doubt lingering in my mind, a year passed, and then things took a sudden turn. It was a Sunday. Roderick had his club activities, and David was getting ready for a long business trip the next day. So our house was bustling from the morning. I made sandwiches for Roderick and watched as the two of them rushed out of the house after breakfast. No sooner had I thought phew, I started the washing machine and began cleaning. It was Sunday, so it would be crowded everywhere. I decided to relax until Roderick came back. As I was hanging the freshly washed laundry, I heard the phone ring inside the house. It was just past 8 o'clock. Who could be calling at this hour? I thought it might be another prank call and hesitantly picked up the phone. "Hello, is this Roderick's residence?" A woman's voice came from the other end. She sounds like she's in a hurry, speaking a bit fast. "Yes, it is," I replied cautiously. "Is this Roderick's family?" "Yes." I couldn't understand the situation, but my heart started to race. "My name is Ainsworth from Johns Hopkins Hospital. Roderick has just been in an accident and has been rushed here." My vision blurred. The Roderick who left home full of energy this morning. We're going to perform emergency surgery now. Hello? Are you all right? The woman who introduced herself as Ainsworth asks me, receiving no response. Yes, the hospital, right? Calm down, me. I try to tell myself, but it's not working. Noticing my confusion, perhaps used to situations like this, Ainsworth speaks to me in a calm voice. Johns Hopkins Hospital. Please come immediately. Yes. I reply hastily and hang up the phone. I understand the situation, but my emotions can't keep up. But I have to get to the hospital quickly. As I get dressed, I call David. I know I need to stay strong, but this is too big to handle alone. And Roderick is in a critical condition. I didn't want to worry David, but not telling him seemed wrong. Despite my internal excuses, I simply wanted to hear David's voice to ease my anxiety. However, no matter how many times I called David's phone, there was no answer. I debated texting, but if he didn't notice the calls, he probably wouldn't notice the text right away either. Maybe he stopped by the office before his trip. I decided to call David's office. Even though it's Sunday, someone might be working overtime. I explained the situation to the person who answered and asked them to pass the message to David. But to my shock, David hadn't gone to work and had no business trip planned. Already panicking about Roderick, now I had no idea where David was. I took a deep breath to calm myself. For now, I needed to head to the hospital. David's situation could be a communication mix-up. I decided to text him and wait for his reply. It's okay. I decided to protect this family and our home. Repeating this to myself, I was about to leave when someone rushed in. I was so startled that I couldn't recognize who it was at first. Mom! I forgot my sandwich! Noticing my shock, Roderick looked at me with concern. Mom? Did I scare you by coming back suddenly? Confusion, relief, doubt. Various emotions swirled within me. Seeing Roderick's face, I started to calm down. Roderick was right in front of me. I cupped his face with my hands to confirm. Tears fell from my eyes. Mom? What's wrong? Seeing Roderick's panic made me smile. Roderick was okay. I slowly began to regain my composure. I told my club I'd be late, so I've got time. What happened? Seeing my tears, Roderick was concerned. When did he grow so big and kind? As I thought that, I explained about the call I received this morning. I was in an accident. But I'm so full of energy, Roderick said, jumping up and down to show it. He was trying to make me laugh and reassure me. For now, how about calling the hospital to check? It could be someone else with the same name. Roderick has always been such a responsible kid. I walked towards the living room, where the phone is, accompanied by Roderick. I dialed the number of the hospital that I had noted down earlier. Earlier, I received a call that Roderick had been taken to the emergency room. I'm his mother. I tell the woman who answers the phone. Now, what was the name of the person who called me earlier? As I try to recall, the hold music stops, and the woman's voice comes back on the line. Thank you for waiting. I'm sorry, but we have no record of anyone named Roderick being brought in. What? I exclaim in surprise, my voice sounding strange. I apologize briefly to the woman on the phone and hang up. So, the hospital said they didn't know anything about it, huh? Roderick sighs. I'm sorry. I was really panicking. I start to feel apologetic. No, Mom, it's not your fault. If you heard that I was taken to the hospital, of course, you'd be surprised. Actually, I'd be sad if you didn't worry. Roderick is smiling. But still, why would someone make such a prank call? Could it be some kind of scam? Roderick seems to be analyzing the situation calmly. Please, stop. Anyway, I'm just glad you're okay. Feeling more at ease, I moved towards the front door to see Roderick off once again. Here, take this sandwich. You said you'd be late for your club, so you don't have time to dawdle. However, Roderick just looks at me, not moving. Roderick? What's wrong? I'm fine now. Before I can finish, Roderick interrupts. Isn't there something else that's bothering you? His eyes lock onto mine, and I feel I can't escape. This is more important than any club. Please, tell me. He's no longer the child I thought he was, but a mature adult standing before me. I tell Roderick about the pranks we've been experiencing. This call was just another prank. Really, it's so malicious. As I recall everything, a sense of unease rises within me. Garbage thrown into the yard, creepy letters sent to the house. Why do we have to go through this? Sensing my unease, Roderick makes a call on his phone. Mom, I'm going to skip the club today. Given everything that's happened, the person who called might even be watching you now. Roderick smiles reassuringly at me. But you have a game coming up. I can't let some prank get in the way of what my son wants to do. I have to handle this on my own. It's okay, Mom. Roderick seems unconcerned, despite my worry. I know he's trying to make sure I don't push myself too hard. Today's just a practice. It's going to be short, and not everyone is attending anyway. Then, he sits down on the living room sofa. Are you really okay? Yeah. Roderick sits on the sofa and immediately seems lost in thought. I'll make some tea. It seems like he doesn't hear me. When Roderick is focused on something, he tunes out everything else. What could he be thinking about? Maybe how to deal with the pranks. After setting the tea in front of him, Roderick turns to me and starts to speak. I was planning to keep this from you, Mom, but maybe it's related to what's happening now. His voice was small, almost a whisper. Do you know something? Roderick nodded quietly and began to speak slowly. Please, stay calm while I tell you this. He prefaced, then shared a story that was hard to believe. David might be having an affair. It happened the day I went on a day trip with my friends. Roderick had come home early from school due to exams. He saw David coming out of the house with a young woman. David, flustered, said he just came to get something he forgot while on his rounds. He claimed the woman was just a colleague and quickly left. But on another day, when Roderick was returning from a club trip to the neighboring town and went into a restaurant with his friends, he saw David arguing with the woman. It was the same woman from the house. The way they argued didn't seem like a boss and subordinate. Hearing this, I felt a growing sense of dread. But I want to believe in David. He's always considerate, ensuring I don't feel lonely. He wouldn't betray me like that. Thank you for telling me, Roderick. But I still want to trust Dad. I thought you'd say that. Roderick smiled a little. If you're here, Roderick, could I go and rest for a bit? I'm feeling quite tired. I turned my back to the nodding Roderick and headed to the bedroom. I thought about lying down but couldn't shake off Roderick's story. I reached for David's desk drawer in our bedroom. It's fine. There's nothing. He wouldn't betray me. Still, I needed something concrete. Inside the drawer was David's planner. He usually carried it with him. Why would he forget it today of all days? With trembling hands, I opened it. I checked the page where he wrote his monthly plans and the section for today's date. I kept checking the date over and over, but it was clear a heart was drawn on today's date. When I called his office, they said he wasn't on a business trip. I couldn't reach him. The pieces started to come together. What do I want to do? I still want to believe in David. That's why I need to know the truth. Determined, I took out my phone to text David and couldn't help but laugh. The text about Roderick being taken to the hospital was still unsent. I never thought it would come to this. I felt that today might be a turning point in my life. I contacted your office, David. I know you're not on a trip, so please come home quickly. I sent the text and decided to rest for a while. About an hour later, David came home. He seemed angry. I heard him stomping around noisily. When I went downstairs, he came towards me and started yelling. Why did you contact my office without asking me first? Do you not trust me? He was angry without even hearing my side. David has a bad habit of getting angry when things don't go his way. So, I was used to it. This is a breach of our trust. Do you understand? Before I could interject, David started talking rapidly. At this point, it was useless to say anything, so I just listened to him for a while. Eventually, he seemed to calm down, and David grew quiet. Now it was my turn to speak. This morning, I got a call saying Roderick was taken to the hospital. I thought I should let you know right away. David stared at me blankly. I tried calling your cell phone multiple times, but I couldn't reach you. So, I contacted your office. David remained silent. They told me you didn't have any business trips scheduled. At first, I thought it was a communication error, but David seemed to be considering what to say. You came back because it would be problematic if your office was contacted, right? So, where exactly were you planning to go from today? I pressed him hard. Just as David was about to retort, Roderick appeared from the living room. Why don't you two come over here and talk? David looked surprised to see Roderick. Oh, Roderick! I thought you were taken to the hospital. Oh, didn't you hear? It was a prank call. As you can see, I'm fine. In a daze, David walked toward the living room. I secretly activated the voice recorder I had in my pocket. In the living room, I confronted David again. So, what are your plans starting today? It's a business trip, of course. David was about to shout again. I quickly raised my voice. The other day. David flinched a little. The other day, I heard you brought a woman into our house. Roderick told me. David glared at Roderick, but Roderick, with his headphones on, was absorbed in a game on his phone and didn't notice. I explained to Roderick as well. She is just a subordinate who came to retrieve something she forgot while we were out on business. David's voice was getting agitated again. That's what it seems. But on another day, you were arguing with that woman, weren't you? That was... David seemed to be thinking of another excuse. That has nothing to do with you. I was just giving her work instructions. You have no right to criticize me for every little thing. As David stood up, intending to yell at me again, Roderick also slowly stood up. I saw that argument myself. It didn't seem like just work instructions. Roderick looked down at his father, David, with a disdainful gaze. David, now being looked down upon by Roderick, fell silent under the unprecedented pressure. This prank call today, it's happened multiple times before. I quietly handed David a piece of paper with phone numbers written on it. I've been writing down the numbers from the call history every time. David looked at the numbers on the paper, visibly shaken. I want you to check if these numbers are registered on your phone. David averted his eyes from the paper and said, I don't know anything about that. It's not that you don't know. Let me check. If you can't do that, call these numbers. David's attitude confirmed my suspicion. David knew who was behind those calls. As I stepped closer, David sank to the floor, defeated. "I'm in trouble too," David began to explain in a small voice. It turned out that the woman wasn't just a subordinate to him. She had a family, and they had been involved in a relationship where they both understood the boundaries. But recently, she started pressing him for a divorce, which he wasn't prepared for, causing him distress. "She has a family too, and getting involved with a subordinate was my mistake. I don't want to make a big deal out of it." So far, there hasn't been any apology directed at me. "I won't see her anymore, so can you help me break up with her?" I didn't respond and instead asked for detailed information about when their relationship started and everything leading up to the present. David seemed to assume I would cooperate and began sharing everything freely. "This is all the truth. Let's work together to end it with her." As if I'd help you. Before I could voice my thoughts, Roderick spoke up to David. "Dad, are you serious? This is the lowest thing you could ever do." David looked like he was about to cry, glancing between me and Roderick. "Seriously, this is the lowest? Who do you think will help you? You got to be kidding me." David looked utterly confused, alternating his gaze between me and Roderick. "I will be taking Roderick and going back to my parents' house. I'll handle the necessary procedures through my lawyer." With those words, Roderick and I left the scene. A few months later, our divorce was finalized. I submitted recordings from a voice recorder as evidence, and perhaps because David had admitted to the affair himself, he readily agreed to my demands for compensation and child support. However, the woman David had an affair, Ainsworth, was problematic. When I sent her a certified letter demanding compensation for the divorce due to her affair with David, she refused. After multiple reminders, the matter escalated to mediation, where she made outrageous statements. She claimed their relationship wasn't an affair but true love. She said there was nothing wrong since she was divorcing her husband to marry David. She even admitted to harassing me but argued it was my fault for not divorcing David sooner. She blamed me for her jealousy and actions, saying it was all my fault for making her do things she normally wouldn't. Ultimately, after David broke up with her, her anger turned towards me, leading to her making a false phone call claiming Roderick was hospitalized. From her perspective, even that was somehow my fault. To top it off, she winked at me during the mediation, saying, "Thank you for leaving David." Of course, her arguments didn't hold, and she was ordered to pay the compensation I demanded in the divorce case. I felt a bit sorry for David, realizing he truly was in a difficult situation. Even her husband demanded compensation in their divorce, but she boldly stated, "Why should I pay? If anything, I should be receiving compensation for wanting the divorce." After the lawyer explained it clearly, her face turned pale, and I couldn't help but worry about her future. Seeing her write the agreement and the promissory note as instructed by the lawyer, she looked like a child being scolded by their parent while doing homework. David really got involved with a terrible woman. But I no longer had any desire to help or protect David. Everything was finally settled a few months later. The compensation from the divorce settlement with David and Ainsworth was paid in a lump sum, and with that money, Roderick and I left home and started living together. David quit his job. After the divorce, Ainsworth's advances became more aggressive, and their relationship became public within the company, making it difficult for him to stay there. Ainsworth also quit her job, almost stalking David. Concerned about Ainsworth's actions, David has been staying home more often. Even if he tries to find a new job, at his age, it's unlikely he'll find anyone willing to hire him. How do I know so much about my ex-husband? Well, I started working at a fast food restaurant again. Of course, we still deliver to David's old company. I don't make the deliveries, but my coworkers who do always bring back plenty of gossip. There's nothing scarier than rumors, I thought. Thinking that, I started packing up to leave work. Today is Roderick's turn to cook dinner. Now a high school senior, Roderick decided to attend a culinary school and eagerly prepares meals on his cooking days. Although we sometimes cook together, Roderick's culinary skills never cease to amaze me. Even though I've been a housewife for years, he's more efficient and makes tastier food than I do. Before I knew it, eating Roderick's cooking became the highlight of my day. I wonder what he's making for dinner today. As the city begins to dim and the lights in houses start to flicker on, I walk home. I see the light coming from my house and pick up my pace. There's a different kind of happiness in that room now. Smelling the delicious aroma of Roderick's cooking, I opened the door to our home where he was waiting.
Hello, Jessica. Could you come over to my place for a bit?
It was a call from Ashley, my husband David's sister. She sounded panicked, like she was really stressed out. Ashley's house is just a short walk away. All right. I'll come over right now. When I arrived at her house, she led me to her room. The room was swarming with bees.
Whoa! What's going on here? When I opened this box, this happened.
I knew we needed to call Ashley's husband, Robert, who was at a cafe, so I called him to come home. Thinking it was too difficult to talk in a room full of bees, we decided to step outside. The three of us gathered at the front door. I questioned Ashley.
So, Ashley, why is there a box full of bees in your house? I have no idea. I just found it outside and brought it in. That can't be right. That box was sent to me by my daughter Emily.
My name is Jessica, a 65-year-old part-timer at a local supermarket. There's something that's been constant since my childhood. I've always loved stuffed animals and teddy bears. Growing up in a poor family, I couldn't often get stuffed animals or teddy bears. But now, as an adult, I buy a teddy bear every time I travel or go out, and it's become my hobby to collect them. My husband David indulges this childlike hobby of mine. David works as a public servant at the town hall. About a year ago, there was a teddy bear I really wanted. It was a limited edition sold exclusively through an online shop, part of a collaboration between a famous brand and a popular character. However, I had never shopped online before. So, I was ready to give up on getting this limited edition item. I was talking about this with David. If it's about online shopping, leave it to me. Recently, my office started ordering things online. Really? Yes. So I'll order it for you.
You're amazing. Thank you.
David immediately took out his PC and ordered it, showing me how to use the online shop. Whenever I was in trouble, David was always there to help. Since then, I've started buying daily necessities, groceries, and even teddy bears online. Around December of that year, the supermarket where I work got very busy. As a senior staff member, I ended up working almost every day. This limited my time to receive packages ordered online. David was even busier. So, we decided to rethink our package receiving method. We learned about contactless delivery, where packages are left at the doorstep even if no one is home. From that time on, we primarily used contactless delivery. Just recently, while I was taking a break at work, I received a text from the delivery person. It was a notification that my contactless delivery package had arrived. I had received many similar texts before, so it was business as usual. I noticed something unusual only after I got home. Walking through the gate of our house and arriving at the front door, I glanced around my feet. However, the package set for contactless delivery was not in its usual spot. Considering other possibilities, I stepped outside the gate again. "This is strange," I muttered suddenly. The cawing of crows echoed across the sunset-colored sky. David was not yet back from work but would be home soon. Since I had to prepare dinner before he returned, I decided to put the delivery aside and went inside the house. Once I started cooking dinner, I got so absorbed in the cooking that the delivery completely slipped my mind. In the following days, I was busy with household chores and work, having no time to deal with the still undelivered package. That weekend, on Sunday, while watching the morning news, David said, "I feel like having that pizza today." By that pizza, he meant the pizza from the place we often go to. That place is a cafe run by my sister-in-law Ashley and her husband Robert, with Robert being the chef and owner. David and I both had the day off for the first time in a while, and David made this suggestion early in the morning. "Jessica, how about we go to that cafe after a long time?"
"Sure, let's go."
Even though we say we go often, it's roughly once a month. Typically, it's on the days when both David and I have the day off, and David feels like going. Because Robert's pizza is exquisite and one of his favorite foods. So, just like usual, we decided to go to the cafe that day. The cafe is very close to our home. Under the clear blue sky, the two of us walked to the cafe. When we opened the cafe door, the metal doorbell rang.
"Welcome." "Oh my, isn't it David and Jessica?"
"Thanks for having us. Please, take a seat at the counter." We were guided to the counter seats right in front of the kitchen. Well, both of you together. How have you been?" As usual, the two of them, skilled at customer service, greeted us energetically.
"We're still going strong."
Although there were only 4 people in the store, it felt bustling. I loved this cheerful atmosphere and thought this place was wonderful. "Robert, can we have the usual too, please?" "Leave it to me." Saying this, Robert blushed and started baking the pizza. He sliced the freshly baked pizza and handed it to Ashley. "2 pizzas, here you go." This pizza is incredibly delicious. Even though we've had it many times, it's a taste that you suddenly crave, and it's always delicious whenever you eat it. After we finished the pizza, they served us some coffee.
"It really is delicious every time."
"Thank you." Ashley said this while sitting across from me at the counter. At that moment, I noticed something. She was wearing earrings similar to the ones I had ordered from an online shop.
"Ashley, those earrings are cute. Where did you get them?"
"Really? Thanks. I bought these from an online shop." "Is that so? Online shopping is really convenient, isn't it?" "Yes, it is. But with this cafe running all the time, I'm hardly ever home during the day and don't have time to receive packages. In that case, how about using contactless delivery?" "Contactless delivery? Is that really a thing?" I decided to explain the concept of contactless delivery in detail. As I was explaining, I recalled my own experiences with contactless delivery and began to share them. "Contactless delivery is great, but sometimes there are mistakes. There have been a few times when my packages didn't arrive. I've paid for them, so I want to contact the delivery company, but I just don't have the time."
"Really? I didn't know that could happen."
At this point, I decided to check the status of my current contactless delivery packages again. The top one, a limited edition teddy bear I ordered yesterday, was still showing as preparing for shipment. I pointed it out to Ashley.
"Ashley, look. It says this hasn't been delivered yet."
"Yeah, I see." Then, I pointed to the second item on the list, a set of cosmetics marked as delivered.
This one is supposed to have arrived already, but it hasn't.
I wonder what's going on. I hope you find it. At this moment, I glanced at David. David and the others were discussing something else, but we ended up talking about this issue.
Well, I guess we should just wait and see if it gets delivered eventually.
He gave a nonchalant smile as he said this. David has such a laid-back personality that he didn't seem to think it was a big deal. After our small talk, we left the store. On the way back home, I suddenly opened my mobile phone to check the delivery history again. The status hadn't changed, most of the packages were still marked as delivered. I started thinking about the possible reasons why they hadn't arrived. Maybe the local delivery company was holding on to them, or they were delivered to the wrong house. Surely, no one in the neighborhood would steal a package left on someone else's doorstep. My biggest concern now was whether the limited edition teddy bear, which was supposed to arrive soon, would actually get delivered. I decided that if the teddy bear didn't arrive, I would pursue the matter further. I had made up my mind about that. 2 days had passed since our visit to the cafe. As soon as I finished work, I eagerly checked my mobile phone. The status of the long-awaited limited edition teddy bear had changed to delivered. I quickly changed out of my work clothes and left the office. My pace quickened as I headed home. When I arrived, I looked for the package. But there was no sign of the box anywhere.
Why?
I was frustrated that the package hadn't arrived at my house yet, and I was still without an answer as to why. Until now, the missing items had been things like cosmetics and spices, so I didn't feel the urgency to resolve it quickly. However, this time was different. The teddy bear, which I had been looking forward to adding to my collection, hadn't arrived. I was determined to get to the bottom of this. That night, I talked to David about it.
The teddy bear that was supposed to arrive today didn't come. That's serious. How many times has this happened now? Maybe 3 times. It's really strange, isn't it?
Let's call the delivery company right now.
Yes, let's do that.
I called the delivery company. But, as expected, the result was the same. The delivery person who handled the package answered the phone.
The package set for contactless delivery is missing. Really? I definitely left it at the front door.
Is that so? I thought it might still be with you. What's going on? So, it's possible someone stole it. How about reporting it to the police? Thank you. I'll think about it. For some reason, I felt sorry for the delivery person too. Even if I file a theft report, I wasn't sure if it was really stolen, and I was a bit troubled. At that moment, David said, "Let's ask Emily. She might know a solution." Emily is our daughter who turned 40 this year. She is now married to a man who works at a beekeeping farm and spends her days with a lot of bees. Since it would be easy to talk to Emily, we decided to rely on her.
Hello, Emily?
What's up? It's about the last month. You see, our contactless delivery packages haven't been arriving. I detailed the recent delivery issues to Emily. Of course, I also told her that the delivery person confirmed they had delivered the packages.
It might have been stolen. I thought so too. What should I do?
If the packages are being stolen every time, I have a good idea. Then she suggested something quite outrageous. I'll send some bees. If the thief receives them, we'll know who's stealing the packages. Honestly, I thought it was too bold, but it might be worth a try.
Can you really do that?
Don't worry. We have thousands of bees. It'll help identify the thief quickly. Half doubtful, half believing, I waited for the bees to arrive. A few days later, after work, I checked my phone and saw that the package had been delivered. When I got home and checked the front porch, the package was gone as usual. I wasn't sure if this was good or bad, but there was nothing I could do at the moment. Feeling quite resigned, I spent a few hours in a daze. Then my phone rang. It was a call from Ashley.
Hello, Jessica. Can you come over for a bit?
Her voice sounded urgent and panicked. Ashley lives just a short walk away. Okay, I'll come over right now. When I arrived at Ashley's house, she led me to her room. The room was full of bees buzzing around.
Whoa! What's this? I opened the box and this happened.
First, I was shocked to see the room full of bees, and then I was stunned to realize that Ashley was the thief. Emily had told me that bees at this time of year wouldn't sting unless provoked. So, I hadn't been stung yet, but I didn't know about Ashley. I thought I should call Robert, who was likely at the cafe, and I dialed his number. Since discussing this in a room full of bees was impossible, we stepped outside. The three of us gathered in front of the house. I questioned Ashley there.
Now, Ashley, why do you have that box of bees in your house? I don't know. I just took it and opened it because it was in front of my house. That can't be. That box was sent to me by Emily. I'm telling you, I don't know anything about it. Did you steal it, Ashley? I'm telling you, I didn't.
Ashley raised her voice.
If you say you didn't, can we check your room? Maybe we'll find more stolen items. No way, that's not possible. I'll just check the room for a bit.
With that said, she walked into the room alone, possibly to clean up before I entered. I had no chance to follow her, so I waited outside.
What's going on? Recently, my contactless delivery orders hadn't been arriving. I suspected they were being stolen, so I consulted Emily. She then sent that bee.
As I explained the situation to Robert, we heard Ashley scream.
Ouch!
Apparently, she had panicked and ended up agitating the bee, which stung her. Ashley came out of the room looking exhausted. With the room in that state, please leave for today. She meant that with the bees flying around, we couldn't enter the room today. Just then, a stranger approached us. He was a man named James, a beekeeper living nearby, and an acquaintance of Emily. After introducing himself, James said, "Emily asked me to collect the bees. Is that okay?" "Yes, please do." While Ashley was still flustered, Robert and I guided James into the room. We continued talking outside while waiting for the bees to be collected. "Looks like we'll be able to check the room today."
But there's nothing to see. It's all stuff I bought myself.
Ashley was unusually assertive. She probably intended to claim everything in the room was hers. After about 30 minutes, James returned. "It's done. I collected all 900 bees."
900 bees?
Shocked by the sheer number of bees, the three of us entered the room. I looked around the room. As I explored every corner, I found various items like fabric softeners and cosmetics that I had ordered.
So, you stole all of these too? No, but...
I showed her the order history on my phone.
Are you still going to lie? There's a chance I just bought the same things, right?
I was slightly exasperated but continued searching for the teddy bear. Eventually, I spotted the familiar teddy bear in the corner of the sofa.
Did you buy this teddy bear too? Yes, I did.
I knew this teddy bear was a limited edition, each with a unique serial number. So, I checked my phone for my teddy bear's number and compared it with the one in the room. It had the same 5-digit number.
This teddy bear is mine. Look, it has the same number.
I showed Ashley and Robert.
Can recent plush toys really tell us that?
Robert muttered. Ashley sat down on the sofa, looking down silently.
You've been stealing our deliveries, haven't you?
Yes. Her voice grew heavy.
What did you steal? You didn't use any of it, did you?
I used some lotion and spices, just a little bit.
Why did you do that?
I was more curious about her motive than angry about the theft. Well, I didn't have enough money. My expenses exceeded my allowance. That's all.
But why did you spend so much money? What did you spend it on? That is, well,
Ashley stammered. It seemed like there was something she was hiding, but she didn't seem ready to talk about it. Then suddenly, Robert moved and picked up a scrap of paper that had fallen under the couch.
Hey, what's this? You didn't.
Saying that, Robert showed me a piece of paper with numbers and amounts written on it. I'm sorry, I got carried away. The piece of paper Robert showed was a betting ticket for horse racing. In other words, she had become obsessed with horse racing, using the money she saved by taking everyday items from me to bet on horse races. What a terrible thing to do. And then, Robert said something even more shocking.
Ashley, you didn't take money from the store's sales, did you?
Just a little.
I thought the accounts weren't adding up. How could you?
It turned out she had been embezzling from their cafe sales. I'm really, really sorry. I won't do it again. Please forgive me. Ashley cried out, raising her voice in an attempt to apologize. But for me, the fact that she had taken even one of my treasured teddy bears was unforgivable. Her apology didn't move me at all. And Robert looked visibly frustrated too.
Actually, I secretly recorded everything since I started collecting the bees. No way.
See you in court. With solid evidence in hand, Robert and I decided to file a report. First, Robert filed for divorce. Then, charges of theft of my belongings and embezzlement were brought against Ashley. In the end, she was arrested. We were satisfied with that outcome. Robert's cafe hired more staff, and sales steadily increased. By the way, I started working part-time at the cafe. Ashley was arrested, huh? It's for the best. It's better not to be with someone like that. I'm much happier now, surrounded by people who work hard. Yes, let's keep doing our best. Robert already seemed to be looking ahead. And from then on, my packages arrived properly at my house. Of course, many new teddy bears joined my collection. David and I went on trips to collect limited edition teddy bears, and surrounded by so many teddy bears, I am living a very happy life with David.